This is Rapid Chorus, director, animator, voice actor, and even editor for the MoonMarsh Fantasy, and this is behind the scenes. The MoonMarsh Fantasy is a Gary's Mod type of animation series that I'm doing. It's supposed to be a post-apocalyptic epic realm with fantasy elements. So it's kind of a Fallout meets Lord of the Rings, if that makes sense, but I just did it in my own way. I would also like to say, I don't know who exactly put it on IMDb, it just randomly got there. I actually don't have an account on IMDb, so I honestly don't know who put it there. But this series, it was meant to be a drama, hence Lucy Dew's problems mixed with the main character Rapid Ritsu, and they go on an adventure to work it out. But it turns out, though, it's like an adventure series now. My intention was to throw small elements of horror, as you can actually see with the appearance of the aliens in Rocky Hayes' video. But they're rarely seen on purpose because we're trying to not make this a sci-fi. Believe it or not, this show was supposed to be called The Fey Moon Terrain, where it was supposed to be a plain pony drama in a post-apocalyptic fantasy world. But I found out that someone else already took this name and the idea, and so we have the series we have today. Okay, so the main character was actually supposed to be Nick in a MoonMarsh Fantasy. But again, I couldn't find any dedicated voice actors that wanted to actually take the main role. I literally tried too, so I actually went to Barry Mitchell's, to other actors that actually didn't message me back or just plainly just declined the roles. This is another reason why the episodes are 5 minutes, is because I actually can't get everyone to participate for a longer time for like such dedications like Nick. Now, at the same time, I was thinking of making just a Splatoon fantasy series, but more on that later. We also went through a phase of Splatoon in an apocalypse, but more on that also. So here's where things are going to get a bit weird. This is seriously how it all started though. I'm going to try to leave names in my personal life out of most of this, but it is going to be a weird ride. So it was a couple of years ago when I actually was back home. I was still smoking at the time, and I actually wanted to go back to my glory days for like the old time's sake of watching like Gen 4 of MLP. And I was actually taking a trip down memory lane to those days, and also those days where I was a fan of the Gmods and the SFMs, even way before I even started animating things. So things like Argo Damien and even the Inverted Shadow with the elements of insanity. And so, rewatching these, I wanted to see, are there any Splatoon goods in this field of animation? You know, maybe there's like a huge community of them. And that's when I actually stumbled upon Dawn of the Hero by Barry Mitchells. It caught my attention because it was the same way I even wrote stories even back at the time. So I was able to message Barry at the time for a small interview, and it just made me more inspired than ever to actually start a Gmod series. This is actually all in my car actually too at the time. I was actually watching all of this in the car, and I actually got the huge inspiration of it. Just parked there in the middle of the desert, just literally just watching these videos, just for like old time's sake. But this is where like the life began, of like the voice acting deal, and even like the Splatoon-like stories. And so I saw other Splatoon Squid creators actually create their things, and whatever creations, such characters, whatever. And you know, this is normally the stuff you would actually see on YouTube anyway. So I thought like a Gmod TV series where Inklings are in a toony like suburban city, they fight like an Octo underground army, and the show started as them other squids. And so later down the road, I thought I could actually make a sequel to this series called Squid's Aftermath, where Seda actually still chases the squids around, but this time in an apocalyptic alternate universe. And that was actually the first step to creating the MoonMarsh Fantasy. So over time, I actually met a group of tabletop RPG players, and I did a lot of research on games such as D&D and even Warhammer 40k. And I researched it and thought it could be an easier way to actually make things for the series. So kind of like make like a concept that's actually meant to be for the game, but it's actually my own story instead to actually animate these, and that's how it actually began. And so I tested this out with Splatoon RP rooms and even stuff like Discord and audiences and stuff in those type of groups at the time. And I was actually getting great feedback at the time, and everyone wanted to know like what was the secret and everything. And that's just one of the things. So this is where the downturn actually came in. So that team actually backstabbed me for something really like dumb, I can say, but I'm actually not going to go into the details of it. But I was actually literally fighting off for this show for over 2 years, and this information for all this show was actually gonna fall into the wrong hands, believe it or not. I was literally physically fighting to literally keep the show in. If you guys were actually followers of my channel from the very beginning, you'll also see that some of those videos are actually removed because of court legal action. Now, as some of you know, and it actually goes without saying, there was the era of being a brony, which was a thing. And of course, there was big inspirations, not just the show itself, but even the fan animations, the SFMs, the Gmods and stuff that were actually available during like the early 2010s. Big shout out to like Buttons Adventures by Jan Animations at the time, which is actually now taken off because due to a cease and desist, sorry. And so even today, like I even like watch the community, but I don't really like pay attention. Some of you guys actually might have noticed that. And so taking concept from all that stuff I actually been through at the time during like the early 2010s is one of the huge inspirations of this show. I'm someone who was like a huge loner and had to like make things work. So living in places that I grew up in, this was resulted in a bunch of weird experiences, mainly through like everyone else goes through in life mainly. But some people don't understand certain things at the time. It's because I had like ASD, but they're like very relatable. But this is also the reason why it has a weird sense of humor in the show, and also the horror elements. Those are due to the real life experiences that actually put those inspirations into the show as well. Now, when I actually say this one, I mean the actual sleeping dreams, not just a life goal or a fantasy of some sort. I'm a very vivid dreamer, so the actual dreams I actually have felt very real. And this goes to questionable things like adventures that end on weird notes, and even the character Rustica and Nick themselves actually being actual dream characters I actually had. And I made them into real things, and this also is one of the reasons I have the references to certain things that are also very weird that you actually see in the series, is because that thing alone.